Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to the BTB Movie Club podcast. My name is Tim Larson. We hope you enjoy today's movie discussion. Thanks for listening. All right, ladies and gentlemen, welcome to the BTB Movie Club. My name is Tim Larson, here with friends to discuss movie number 212. This movie is Room from 2015, starring Brie Larson and Jacob Tremblay, putting in a solid performance as a young 5-year-old. Serious content matter. This story comes from, I remember this being in the news, that in Austria, there was a guy, his name was Fritzy. It was called the Fritzy case, that he had kidnapped his own daughter and kept her underground for 24 years and fathered 7 children with her. And he told his wife that she had run away and joined a cult. I do remember it being on the news when they found her, and the background was one of the children, a little girl, fell down and hurt herself pretty badly, and the dad went to take the little girl to the emergency room, and that's when the daughter made some kind of break for it and got them out of there. And this author heard that and kind of used that to create this story. So it wouldn't be fair to say that this is, like based on a true story or some kind of biography, but she used that as her source for inspiration to write this story, which is, it's not anything that actually happened. It's just sort of on a tangent. So there we go. A lot to get into here. So Hilty is not here. He may not be here today. So I'll just give you his numbers. The budget for this movie was $13 million. It grossed $36.3 million. And I still didn't look up all the Oscar awarding stuff. Brie Larson apparently won the Oscar award for acting, and this may have won for best movie. I'm not sure. So let's start things off. I'll throw it to Melo. Melo, your thoughts on the movie Room from 2015?
Sure. All right. So Joseph Fritzl, I believe is the name.
Joseph, yes, Joseph Fritzy.
There's a true podcast, or a true crime podcast that I listen to.
Okay.
What's it called? Last Podcast on the Left. They did like a whole
the link that you sent.
Yeah.
I see.
Yeah, like I said, it's definitely not for everybody. I genuinely enjoy what those guys do. It's a lot of history and research, and then a lot of antics and silliness that I think helps. I think the way they do it walks the line, and adds some entertainment value to some very serious stuff that they cover. For other people, it's not for them, and I get it. But anyway, I listened to that series, I don't know, maybe 2 months ago, something like that, and so it was interesting to hear that, and obviously clearly saw the inspiration for this one. So Brie Larson, so I was going through my notes, is 2 in a row. I watched Don John, that pop. I'd never seen it. It's a Joseph Gordon-Levitt movie, Scarlett Johansson. Kind of a quirky little thing. Anyway, Brie Larson is in it, and the whole time she's like this, I don't know, quiet sister that doesn't do a whole lot or anything, but she's just kind of blah. And then this movie, she's definitely not blah, but it's a weird role. And I just kind of joking to myself, I said, it's really messing up my image of her as Miss Marvel. Like,
yeah,
Jacob Tremblay, I had to look up immediately, amazing. And anytime there's a performance by somebody like that, obviously they deserve all the credit that they get, but with somebody like that, I think the director and the editor also deserve a lot of credit for how they help guide a young individual in a performance like that, but just fantastic. When the movie started, I kind of prepared myself for the arc being endurance and then escape. Like that was going to be the climax, and that was not the case in this film. obviously, and so that surprised me. And I was like, oh, okay, cool. This is really interesting too. This whole like, how do we deal with what happened? And then I did feel like that part. I don't know. There were some choices in there that I get or I appreciate that they took the whole like William H. Macy not being able to look at him or some other things that like okay, cool. But maybe there were, a few too many of them or something where I felt like it was interesting that they went that route, and then I did have this feeling like we were in that part of the movie a little too long. I was waiting for the next like okay, if we're going to do that, then what is the climax or what is going to be the ultimate ending? Joan Allen, NIU's finest from Rochelle. Love seeing her
Is
in
she really?
anything. Yeah, yeah.
She's great in this role.
She's great in everything. I mean,
Yeah.
honestly, I always like seeing her, and it's always the NIU nerd in me that like notices those things, like makes a point. Um, oh, okay. There's the dog.
Is there a dog? I can't.
Yeah, yeah. In case you guys hadn't noticed, and a neighbor just like practicing parking in the driveway. Or
I've been making dog toys. Should I send one down there?
if it will quiet them, please.
Yeah, whatever works.
I'll buy two.
Or
I
some
wrote surprised
pharmaceuticals,
he I wrote so when he jumps out of the truck and he's getting away, I wrote surprised that he dropped Jack at first. And then I thought about it more and I said, I guess it makes some sense. Like he wouldn't know he'd have a note or he wouldn't know that he has anything and he really didn't care about him. And so, he figured there's nothing tying me to him. They know a red truck. I gotta let me just get out of here. But
Yeah, I
my
didn't know if
first
they would
instinct,
be able to find the mom,
right? I thought he'd go home and just kill her.
Yes,
Like I'm gonna get caught.
So too.
I might as well just go home and kill her, and then
I
turn
was
myself in.
screaming at Jack at that point. I'm like, you gotta like say everything she told you to say
That's right.
because he's going home to murder your ma
That's
right
right.
now.
To your point, Melo, though, I was thinking about that. Like that's such a strong scene for this movie. Like that whole thing that's the movie, and then you get
mm,
this the unraveling of the rest of life is really good too on the second half of that. But you think about that guy, and I think the mindset is this is how I would like this to play out now that I know that the kid's alive. I would like to go back to the house with this kid, and then I'm gonna deal with what just happened. But priority number one was I need to get the fuck out of here before the cops show up. And I think it was just like that priority, the feeling I got out of it, that took over so that he's just like, I'm out. I gotta go. Drop the money in the bank and run. The cops are on their way.
Well,
yeah,
the other
yeah.
thing, I mean, like, what's going to be worse if he lets go of the kid and leaves, and right in front of that guy, or if he continues to take the kid that's yelling help in front of that guy? Because then, like, they're going to be even more on him.
Well, and even where I was going with it, I think a couple of us were saying like he's gonna go home and murder ma. He's not. Like he needs to flee. Like he knows shit's collapsing on him, which I think makes way more sense. Like in reality, you know, he doesn't stop at home. He doesn't pack a bag. He like takes the red truck as far as it'll go on the amount of gas it has.
Yeah.
Which I think is reality, because he knows it's all falling apart like right now. Gotta go. So yeah, I'm gonna wait for my turn.
Yeah. I'm trying to stop. How's
No,
the
I'm
dog
glad.
situation?
Sorry-
How's the
sorry,
dog
Milo.
situation,
It's
Milo? You
not
okay?
good, man. All of a sudden, there's a lot of in a three house area. There's a lot of activity all of a sudden.
We'd like to welcome the
Uh,
neighborhood dogs to the BTB Movie Club podcast.
yeah, sorry. The last two, well, couple things. The post interview, the 10 seconds of silence around the table, I thought was fantastic. Um, I wrote the tooth is super gross, but I get it. Like they needed some connection. I get it. It's weird though. The suicide attempt, I found, I don't know. I didn't put all the pieces together there. Um, and then it was Ohio. Like it was also one of those things in my head where it was bugging me. I'm like, all right, this feels Midwest? Where are we at? And Ohio were the license plates, but I'll pull up there. Very very good. Knowing the whole Joseph Fritzl story and everything did also kind of mess with me because again, I could see the obvious inspiration, and then I kept trying to second guess, like, or not even second guess, but just figure out how much are they going to use, how much won't they, and instead of being quite as immersed as I could have been, but overall, really well done. Obviously, difficult subject matter, but done well.
Yeah,
I thought
thanks.
you were
So
going with, of course, it was Ohio. Like,
he's not from Michigan.
Oh,
Yeah,
He's-
yeah.
Ohio makes total
Yeah.
sense.
Yeah. Melo, I do have a follow-up question. I've been waiting all day to ask you this. When they're in room and Ma is starting to explain to him that there's a world outside room, and she's given him the okay, so he tried to trick me with a dog, and then I thought it was really interesting that the kid didn't want to have anything to hear. He didn't want to hear it. He's like, this story sucks. I don't want to. But that for me, I'm snooping here. You're the one that's usually sensitive about an exposition dump. In that scene, did you feel like that's an exposition dump?
I didn't. I did definitely
Oh,
think
he
about
does now,
what.
though. Sorry.
No, no. Yeah, yeah, I didn't consider it at the time, but now that you mention it, I guess maybe I should. But I went back and I did think about like, well, what was the turning point? Like, why did that happen? Why did she feel like now this 5-year-old needs to be in on everything, and we need to change all that we, you know, all these walls that we'd put up and trying to protect him and everything like that. Um, and I think she could see that he was like the fact that he came out of his room or whatever. Which I didn't write it down, but man, there was a look from her when he's like, "You don't keep him in there all day, do you?"
I know.
And then, yeah,
No, it's shit
um,
like that that makes this so good.
Right.
I mean,
yeah,
that was
yeah.
that. I don't know if that is like uh screenwriting or I don't know. That was one of the lines that was like, this is next level.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So let's go to Aaron here. I'm going to do a transition thing. So I don't know if anybody noticed it, but when he's at the grandma's house, he's playing with Legos at one point when she is in the hospital after trying to kill herself, and he's in the closet playing with Legos. Like he kind of prefers it, and he asks to go back to room. And the day that they get out, he's like, "Can we go to bed in room?" Which it kind of makes perfect sense. Um, so I'll just throw out: does it? We have no idea what any of this is like, but did the reality kind of sit well with you that they put for these people in this hostage situation? So I'll throw that out there for you, Aaron, and you can do that at the beginning or the end, but take it away and give us your opinion on the movie.
I'll go with that real quick. What you're saying is, I told Christy, my wife, because I just watched it today, and I'll get to the reason why in a second. But for what you're saying, I can't believe, as far as a person that's never been put in this position, like watching this, I think it is the best visual, the best presentation of somebody who's had to go through this that I could imagine. Like I couldn't, and I'm not a writer or anything like that. So like I think this movie was awesome. And it's really weird for me to say that because
It's so
it's
uncomfortable, right? It's
what you're saying
uncomfortable, the
is
subject
like,
matter. Yeah.
how can you psychologically put yourself in the position of Jack wanting to go back to room, or Ma allowing it, or like a lot of the stuff that happened? And you can't, but all I can say is I think they did it the best way that I couldn't even have imagined them doing. So it's like it's so much outside the box of what I could have dealt with, and them trying to present it in a plausible way that, as a teacher and a person who works with kids, and kids getting taken away from parents and all that, like all the horrible shit that actually exists in the world, like, god damn, this was pretty good in how they portrayed it. And a person wanting to go back to what was safe, even though it's not safe by any means,
Right.
to any of our recollections to say, but fucking room was safe to Jack. Like, it's where he lived. It's where, 5 years he was safe there. So, um, to get to the point of what I guess I was trying to make was, um, Thursday, I think I looked up the movie and watched the trailer, and it was, I don't know, 11 o'clock. And I was like, not going to happen. Maybe I'll watch it tomorrow. Watch the trailer again. And, I did not want to watch this movie at all.
Yeah.
I thought I was going to pull a Matt Smith and just be like, hey, opting out of this one. Don't like the content. I watched the
Right.
trailer twice. It's not going to happen. I'm in a really good mood. I'm a happy person. And this movie looks fucking terrible.
Uh-huh.
Not the way it was acted or written or anything else, but just, I don't want to go there. It's my weekend. I don't have to deal with this shit. So Christy went shopping with her mom and sister today, and Lions played the afternoon game, the 4 o'clock game. So I put on my big boy pants and I was like, all right. And because in the trailer, so watching the trailer, I thought it was a person who had been abducted and abused, became older, and a younger one had also been abducted and abused. I thought in the trailer Jack was a girl, because it never, like, I don't believe explicitly says it. So
Okay.
I'm like, there's going to be a kid getting abused, and like, that's where, didn't want to have anything to do with it. And if I had to bow out for the whole movie, I'd be okay.
Mhm.
But went into it today, and I'm so glad I'm part of this movie group, and I'm so glad I watched this movie because, like I said, this is a great movie. For different reasons than the subject matter, but how they handle trauma. Throughout the whole movie, handling the fact of being in the room, the shed, I thought was handled spectacularly. And then halfway they get out. And it isn't super straightforward. Jack didn't exactly follow Ma's plan, but it worked. The cops, the claustrophobia of the cop car and knowing what needed to be done in like a few minutes or hours, compared to the 5-7 years that they were, or she was in the shed. Like, it's like all of this long amount of time has condensed down to this few minutes, and we got to get back and save her. Like, all of that was done great.
It was tense. It was so
So
tense because
tense.
we've all said it already. We think he's going back there to kill her, and
Yeah.
Jack's obviously, of course, hesitant to say anything, and it made for so much tension in that scene. My God,
And it's like, you got to say it. Say what she told you to say.
that's
You
right.
know,
That's right.
to
Come on, Jack.
just answer, and the female cop's questions, and the male cop trying to, oh, let's just get him to the station, and she's like, no, you know I've got an idea, like 3 stop signs, you stop 3 times and you couldn't jump out. She's like, I know where the house is, or pretty much, it's got to be here, because the cops know the city, they know their area. um so all of that, very tense, very great. And that's the first half of the movie. The second half, like William H. Macy comes in, and I'm like, oh, this is gonna be awesome.
Here we go.
You know, and like hugs and daughter and everybody's back. But then they play all, and I don't even want to call it stereotypical drama, but like, or stereotypical trauma that's going to happen. But I think they did justice to all the components that could happen, and they didn't linger on any of them. He had a
Yeah.
problem looking at the kid because he's, you know, the rapist's son too, not just his daughter.
Right.
You know, gone. He's out of the show. We never see him again. The old Rick, what was his
Leo.
name? Old
Yep.
Nick.
old Nick.
Yep.
After they escape, we never see him again. We hear there's a trial, whatever. We don't have to deal with that at all.
I love
But
that.
we know it happens. Like, and the mom and her have a fight. She's having trouble adjusting back to normal society. Totally understandable, you know. But it doesn't go on and on and on. They have a fight. You realize what's happening, you know. I just thought it was all done so well. So glad I watched it. Jack, the actor, phenomenal. Brie Larson, phenomenal. You know, loved it. I know I kind of ran around everything. What was even the question you asked, Tim?
I don't remember.
But yeah, just this. So once again, come into this group, and one of the first movies we had to watch was A24.
Yeah.
I'm thinking A24 is fucking crushing it. I don't know what you guys are talking about. There's a couple of stinkers that you guys have seen or
Right.
like argued about, but like this is out of the box, so different than anything I ever watched. Like I said, I didn't even want to watch it, but God, I don't know. So glad I watched it.
I admit I was a little nervous when I saw the A24. I'm like, oh boy, what are we in for here?
Yeah.
Even before the trailer, Dan, you were like A24. It's gonna
Yep.
be weird.
Here we go.
I saw the trailer and I'm like, yeah, I don't want to. This isn't gonna be my weekend. I don't want to watch this. You know,
I think at this point we could make recommendations to other people who are going to view movies on the order of A24 movies you should watch and the order you shouldn't watch.
yeah.
Don't start with The Lighthouse if you're, if you're looking for something light. You know, like I said, I didn't hate that movie as much as some other people. Dan, let me go to you, and I will preface this with kind of a similar question. And to Aaron's point, they didn't belabor us with details about how the story went. So they also didn't do that at the beginning. So many other movie makers would have made a big deal out of showing the kidnapping and probably showing some rape scenes. And I think they handled that really well. All you do is, you know that you're in the room with the kid and you hear bed making a little bit of noise. I'm really glad that they stayed away from overdoing that. My question to you, and jump in on this right away or later, did that work for you that we just jumped into the middle of a story as opposed to getting the beginning of the story?
Yeah, definitely. I think that you can have too much detail in a movie, too many things going on. You know, you get inundated. So I like the way they did it. And really, at first, I wasn't even sure what was going on. I'm like, they're in this room together. I'm like, you know, you really don't know for a fact that this is a abduction, you know, right away. You know, you figure it out as you go along. But yeah, I like it that they didn't show everything. That you kind of jump in, you know, as the story is 7 years old at that point. And I was just thinking, yeah, you said the other person had 7 kids. How do you hide 7 kids?
Yeah, it was an underground thing under the house. Well, Mela
Underground,
probably has
yeah.
better details.
Wow, that's crazy. But
That's crazy.
yeah, really like this movie. You know, like I said, a little A24. I was a little skeptical, a little nervous, but definitely liked it. And yeah, and like the other guy said, the acting I thought was just incredible. You know, for a young guy, do such a good job. I thought he was really, really good. But like Malo said, it was probably a lot of help from the directors and other people on set that helped him out a lot. But a quote from the movie, I think it says a lot, is when she, her having her tooth problem, she says, it's called mind over matter. If we don't mind, it doesn't matter. And that, she's not only saying that about the tooth, but she's saying that about the whole situation that she's in. You gotta just put it out of your mind, and hopefully, eventually you get free. But another thing, you were talking about Aaron's thing about them going back to the room. That was risky, because you wouldn't think the kid would want to stay there, but he's 5 years old. He might say, hey, I want to stay here. I don't want to leave. Let's go back to room and let's stay there. What if he would have done that?
I was a little
Yeah.
worried about that towards the end there. Like when they first walk, I was like,
Yeah,
Well,
I
and she
mean,
just tried to kill
fortunately,
herself over the thing too. Like, it's how healthy is it for her? Maybe it is healthy to go back into a situation like that and get some closure out of it, but lots of risk in that for sure.
yeah, I definitely think so. But but fortunately he sees, like a lot of things when you're a kid, something seems really big when you're a kid, but then later on, it doesn't seem so big anymore. It looks small. And that's what his comment was. This looks really small now. But what else here? Old Nick gets him a toy car. That's got to be the most annoying gift in a little space like that possible.
he
Or a
brags
drum
about it.
set.
Oh, I know boys.
I know boys. Yeah.
Yeah. But and like you guys were saying, when he's in the truck and he's enjoying the outside, he's looking up at the sky and everything, and you're just saying to yourself, get out, But he's a little in a trance there for a little while. He's not sure what to do. But then he finally, gets free. But yeah, that whole scene was pretty tense when he's trying to gets out of the truck. But the other guy, I mean, I would think, when we were talking about this earlier, I would think that if he grabbed the kid and took him back to the truck, I would think the guy that was walking his dog would at least get his license number. He might not be able to stop him from taking the kid, but I think he would at least run up and get the guy's license number and say, something suspicious going on here. I assume he
Everything-
didn't.
Real quick. I just think more than anything, it just shows how much he didn't care.
Yeah.
About the kid.
He did. Right.
Yep.
Which,
Yeah, and that was another thing, when the interview lady says to her, he says, why didn't you tell him to take a kid to the hospital, and then he'd be free. And I think that really kind of hit home with her, like saying, oh, geez, maybe I should have done that. Maybe I shouldn't have, kept him there at all. So that was, I think it was a little while after that, wasn't it, that she tried to commit suicide? Was it after the interview?
It was immediately after the interview. Yeah.
Well, yeah,
Yeah.
and I think that was one
Good
of those
point.
things that they did really well, like a thing that would happen in real life, because everybody's going to question everything she did, or like,
Yeah.
You couldn't have done this, you couldn't have done that. You were gone for 7 years, and the kid's 5, and there's so much of that that's going to happen in real life. And she was 17 when she got abducted. She was still 17, mentally. She hadn't talked
When
to
she
another
came- yeah.
person since she was 17. So it's like asking a 17-year-old, why didn't you make a better decision? 17,
Right.
It's like,
Right.
it's
Yeah,
not.
and she really didn't progress, mentally after that, being holed up in this room for 7 years.
Even then, when she had the kid, she was only 19. It's like, what the hell were you supposed?
Yeah.
It's not even 20 at that point, and it's just.
Well, and also
Yeah.
she didn't really have the option to go to the hospital. Like,
Right.
they didn't explain that either. Like, I'm assuming she just had to have the baby in the room. But I don't know.
Well, no, the interviewer was talking about after you had the baby, why didn't you tell him to take the baby to the fire department
And drop it off?
the
That's
baby
right.
off and give the baby a better life than you're having in the shed? And
That's
she's like, why are you asking me this? Like,
Yeah.
you're making me the bad guy.
Right.
Right.
This this was going to be kind of a big part of my whole thing, but like I'll just say it now since we're talking about it. That part pissed me off.
Yeah.
I like because that is absolutely how a lot of media type things happen, where they're like, we have a narrative that we're going to try and focus, and their decision was, let's make this mother that was kidnapped and went through all this shit. Let's make her out to be the bad guy. Like, why weren't you a better mother in that situation? And like I out loud said, oh, fuck you, when she asked that last question of like, why did, like, when she asked, like, don't you think that would have been a better decision, And I just, all that pissed me off so much. And that's part of what this movie did really well is, I'll save the rest of it. But yeah, I felt very strongly about that.
Yeah, I definitely
Sorry.
think that they should have gotten a list of questions that the interviewer was going to ask her before
Right.
the interview.
Right. That's
You know,
not that
instead,
much to ask. Right.
right.
But another thing I think about the interview, because it was right after Ma or Brie Larson had the fight with her mom. I think she got paid. I think
For
that
sure.
was an underlying tone. Like, I want to say that was like $1 million interview, because she was like, call my lawyer, right after that. And then the interview got started. So like she had her kind of own money, or whatever. So there was a little bit of freedom there, but she had to do it, even though they didn't explicitly say it. And like what Mela was and Tim were saying, they didn't explain everything to us. They didn't hold our hand at every instance saying, it's $1 million interview and this is going to give you freedom from your mom and this is going to do this and that, So I really like that, where you just had to, figure this is what's happening in the real world because the real world's terrible.
Yeah.
Yep. Yeah, and speaking of terrible people, all these people are hanging out outside their house when they bring her home. Do you people think you're helping the situation by being out there? Give them a little bit of space. They've gone through this traumatic experience, and you need to back off. Of course, the reporters aren't going to back off. That's just what they do. They're going to surround the house or whatever. But like, I think guy was a police officer or FBI agent or something. He said they'll eventually get tired and go on to something else. And that's what always happens with the media. But one last thing, William Macy's character, what a dick. I mean, your daughter's abducted. She's, got this kid raped and has a kid, and then you just say you're so selfish that you just say, oh, screw that. I don't want to deal with this, and you take off. What a jerk. But yeah, enjoyed the movie. This is the first time I've seen it. I had heard of it, but I hadn't seen it before. So good pick.
Thanks, Dan. We'll go to Matt next. I got a couple of questions. First, did you watch the movie?
Yes.
Okay.
That's a fair question.
Thank you. You never know. So here's my question. I'm just gonna give you this one. Who's the biggest jerk in this movie outside of old Nick? Of course, the interviewer, William H. Macy as the grandpa, who they didn't tell us this, but I just assumed, and I don't. Maybe you guys looked at it differently. They were married when she was abducted, and the fact that she was abducted, that just drove them apart.
That's what I assumed.
And so he gets pulled back into it, and he can't handle it. Fall to his own. But anyway, the interviewer, the grandpa, or the cop in the car that's just like, stop asking him questions. We'll just drop him off somewhere else. Who's the biggest dick in that little group there? And then your thoughts on the movie.
That's a tough choice between the grandpa and the interviewer. At least the grandpa had some emotional baggage to blame, right? Because I'm with you. I assume they got divorced because of the abduction. It stressed him out. What a terrible event in your life. I assume only child, because they don't mention any other,
right?
Your brother or your sister. So I'm sure that messed him up. And then it probably messed him up more because she went to a friend. Because that guy Leo was a friend of the family. It wasn't just some random dude. He was a friend of the family. So, but I would have to say the interviewer, just because I have a distaste for people that do things like that. Not the media in general, but some of that. I mean, they're paying for it, so maybe they feel like they're entitled to ask those questions. But I'm with you also, Tim. Like, why didn't you get the questions beforehand, or whoever said that? I
Yeah.
thought it was you. Um,
Dan.
yeah, yeah, for sure. Yeah, I was gonna say I definitely think they got divorced because of the abduction, and I feel like, and maybe this is just me filling in blanks that aren't there, but I almost feel like that was part of what he was struggling with is the reason you and I aren't together is now back, but now you're with this other guy. What are we doing here? I think he was struggling with all that. So he's a jerk in that moment, but I can also understand he's going through some feels as well. Although the mom, and this is like a movie trope. She even says like, do you think you're the only one whose life got destroyed? And I'm thinking, lady,
Yeah.
were you the 17-year-old that got
Right.
kidnapped and raped and stuck in a room for 7 years? Because that seems like way worse than getting divorced from your husband. Just
Right.
throwing that out there. So that she kind of gets a vote from me for that too. But I also understand everybody's very high strung. They had been out for like 2 weeks when that argument happened. I think they said 10 days. They'd been home for 10 days. So I'm sure there was some eggshell walking and they were finally sort of just like, we got to get this out of the way.
And like kind of
Anyway,
what I was saying earlier was I thought that was like so super cringy, felt the same way you're feeling about it, but I thought it was a really good way to have that argument and move on, like,
mhm,
and not make it a 20-minute thing,
right.
because it was like destructive and like, horrible, but it got it out of the way
Mhm.
because you could see those things lingering on.
Sure. The tension, right? A lot of you guys have talked about the tension. Like, I think this movie did a really good job of creating that in all the scenes. Kind of jumped to the end there, but I really like this movie. I can definitely see why Brie Larson got the nod. Um, and I'm an idiot. I haven't had time to look anything up. Did she win or did she just get nominated?
Sounds like she won.
Okay.
G1, yeah.
The kid was really good. He was 8 when he filmed this, by the way, so that helped probably a little bit, but there was times I could, as a parent, and you other parents can probably relate to this, there was times when I could definitely feel Brie Larson's frustration with him, like, the 5-year-old, like, questioning and like, "Well, why?" And you're, "No, I hate you. Why can't I have," like, just not understand. You're 5, he doesn't understand, and this is his whole world, literally, this room is his whole world, so I could just feel her frustration with him as a parent, and my kids grew up in a normal house with normal things happening, not weird, you know, abduction things.
Matt,
Um,
great comment. This would be a good time to have Jen here.
yeah, yes, yes.
She's got 3 of them that
She
do
would've
that to her all the time.
Yeah,
And
yeah.
yeah.
So yeah, no, I really liked it. I will be honest, so Ryan Malo, you sent that link, and I didn't listen to it, but I just read the description. I thought this movie was gonna be way more, like, worse in terms of, like, abuse or rape or whatever. Because I was like, "Oh, he's sending us this podcast that says it's about abuse and sexual assault and whatever." Because I just read the description, I didn't even listen to it, and so I was expecting this to be I told my wife, I'm like, "I'm gonna watch this up in the room, and I'm not gonna have it on. You don't have to watch it because I know you don't like that stuff." And then I
Yeah.
watched it, I'm like, "We definitely could have just watched this like normal people." We didn't There wasn't anything that was that bad.
Well,
Um,
Aaron talked about that too, though, that like, you
Right.
know,
No, exactly, from the trailer.
even just the subject matter, they could have gone
oh, sure,
much darker with it.
sure, sure, and it
Yeah,
sounds like
Nikki, same thing. Nikki was like, I told her about it, and she goes, "Absolutely the fuck not. I am not watching that
Yeah.
movie."
Right,
so,
and that's why I was, like, trying to hide it from my wife, and then tonight I'm trying to describe it to her, I'm like, "You kinda gotta watch it.
yeah,
You
right?
kinda have to watch because they do it so well," and,
Mhm.
So I did read, right now as you guys were talking, I started scrolling through. They did film a rape scene and they decided not to do it because the author said you don't need to do it. Like, there's enough
Good.
in here. So, and I agree
Good
with that.
call.
I like when in the beginning, I can't remember now. Did they show like a scene of somebody's socks? And it kind of looked like, maybe I made this up, but in the very beginning, in my mind I thought it was the abductors, and I thought he was doing
They show
something.
him looking through the slats, and he takes his pants
Well,
down.
that's later
So
though. I meant like right in the beginning. I thought, anyway, it doesn't matter, but I thought that was like the only like
Mm.
possible assault scene we were gonna get. I actually thought before I knew Jack was a boy for real, in my head, multiple times in this movie, I went, it's actually a girl and she's been hiding it, which is obviously impossible because he was there for the birth.
Oh,
I literally thought this is, and she's trying to protect this girl from being assaulted by this guy, and it was a weird thought, but like, but then it like logic took over, and I'm like, wait a minute, he was probably there at the birth, so he would know if it was a boy or a girl. But I
He was
assume,
maybe there for the birth. He might have just said, "Yeah, do it on
yeah,
your
good
own."
luck. I assume that's what the blood stain on the rug was. I assume that was the birth.
makes
Like that's
sense.
why they showed that
Yeah,
multiple times. You could
that
see
was
the stain,
100%.
right? I
Yeah,
figured that was it. Um,
I don't
yeah.
think he was there. I think she,
You think
Right.
so?
Good luck.
yeah, I think she
Yeah.
squirted the kid out, in the afternoon when he was at work.
Yeah.
He didn't give a shit at
Yeah.
all.
Yeah. So, and I
He's
don't,
really sick and might die. We'll give him more meds tomorrow. Like,
yeah.
yeah, that.
Um, so anyway, so I feel like we've watched another movie where somebody's in a small space and they like won an award for it. So I can't remember. I'd have to look back through the list, but it's just I feel like the Academy gives special attention to stuff like that because you really have nothing to work with. So it just is, and they filmed it in a really small space too. From what I have been scrolling since I got on here. So anyway, I think she did great. I like the way they handled everything. Um, I like that they kind of did a half and half, like half in, half out to kind of show the struggle afterwards. And I totally buy, if not worse. I don't even know if they got a reality or a realistic view because who knows what she would actually be going through. I did think, not to poke too many holes in it, because I did enjoy it, but like, guy was kind of an idiot. Like, like you're not gonna check if the kid's really dead, really? Like, that seems odd for someone who's so careful about everything else. Um, the kid's rolling around in the back of the truck, sits up. You're not gonna look in your rearview mirror at
Yeah.
all while you're driving your truck. That was kind of like, okay, whatever. Um,
That may have been something where he just shows that he just didn't care at all
yeah,
about the kid.
that could be. That
Or
could
he's
be.
really just not that bright. He bought some shit and made a garden shed and is like, I'm going to abduct this teenager and have myself a sex slave, and never thought about another thing after.
Okay,
Yeah.
so when they go back in visit room, the backhoe, everybody
Oh,
see the
yeah.
backhoe? That's by
Mhm.
like,
Yeah.
so in the book, and I never do any research, but in the book, she had given birth before, and he buried the kid just outside the door. So the
Mm.
backhoe had just dug up the other
Oh.
body.
Oh.
Okay.
So that's why she was adamant about he needs to be under trees, he needs to be away from this
Oh,
place.
yeah.
So,
Hmm.
and they never touch on that at all.
Mm.
And I
Right.
don't know if it's like in an extended version or whatever, but a little bit, I was like, oh, I never would have got that at all. But
Right.
like if you read about people talking about it in the book, they're like, we never thought they were going to address, and then like the backhoe and the hole right outside the door
Yeah.
made
Um,
reference to it.
yeah, I totally agree. He dropped the kid because he knew like, okay, this is over, ran away. But I thought for sure he was going back to kill her
Mhm.
before he left town. He's
Yep.
thinking it's gonna take him a long time to figure out where I came from. I'm gonna race back home, I'm gonna kill this lady, and then I'm gonna take off and be gone forever. I'm glad that's not what happened, but and yeah, the suicide attempt was weird. Somebody already mentioned that. But I also understand like you're you you finished your childhood basically in this room. As somebody mentioned, like you didn't really get to grow up after that, right? You're still probably stuck in that sort of mental age because that's when you stopped living your life. Um, so I have to imagine being out in the outside world and things going the way they did has to be just trying on you. So that one it didn't bother. I mean, it was kind of weird, but it didn't bother me that much. And then I just like the ending. Like you got your closure. You went back. I'm glad she went back because they could have just been like they could have treated it as she never wants to see the place again. But she went back. They got their closure, and maybe they can move on. Um, So yeah, no, very good pick. I enjoyed it a lot. I'm glad it wasn't what I thought it was going into it because that would have been a much different experience. I'm
Yeah.
glad they handled it the way they did. And good for Brie Larson. I just read as I was scrolling here, she locked herself in her house for a month before she did this. So that's some dedication, man. I don't know if I could do that. So, and I'm an introvert by nature, so I could probably make it a couple weeks without a peep, but after that, whew, stuff.
Yeah. All right, thanks, Matt. We go to close it out here with Mike Wilden. You and I just literally last night recorded a podcast about your mother being a champion,
Mhm.
and as you're giving your thoughts on this movie, um, how did you feel about her approach to motherhood inside this room with this kid until he's 5 years old, not letting she kind of protected him from all of the bad stuff going on. Did you have a reaction to that, or am I just reaching to be able to say something when you see it?
Not terribly, but I thought my theory on that, because once the interviewer, who's, again, I want to emphasize, was a fucking asshole. uh Once she keeps asking that question of, like, oh, did you really do the best, I kind of go back and I think about, like, obviously, like, she did the best she could in the situation that she had. But it just kind of made me think about, like, all right, well, if you're in this situation and you have this kid, like, what do you do? Even just, what do you do with a kid in general? And I think my theory, this is coming from somebody that doesn't have kids, so correct me if I'm wrong, for those of you that are parents. But my theory would be something like a Santa Claus or an Easter Bunny would just be early on to kind of give kids something to believe in, type thing. Because when you're little, you have such a huge imagination and you don't really know what's actually real and what's going on. So I don't know. I don't know. Maybe she didn't think she was ever going to escape. Maybe she thought they'd be in there way longer than until, he was 5. And it was just like, this might have to be, or maybe they thought they were going to get out way earlier. Who knows? Um, yeah, I didn't have, like I said, I think she did the best with what she had. And, you know, I especially, given that, like, once he turned 5 and she was able to kind of talk to him a little more, she was like, all right, you're grown up, so we can talk about some truth, and here's what the real thing is. And it's like, that seemed pretty realistic to me. I think that was the thing I really liked about this movie the most, was how realistic and relatable in good and bad ways this could be. um because, yeah, well, obviously, it has had some inspiration from true events, but, like, there are really people out there that are like old Nick. Like, that's a thing that happens,
Yeah.
and not even that, like, not even that rarely. It's a thing that happens, and just to think that real human beings have gone through that, and some are probably going through it now, it just makes your skin crawl. And that was obviously to a lesser extent, because that's clearly the worst. But to a lesser extent, that was also how I felt about the interviewer too. I was like, it's fucking, like, that's, they always try and just make you. But I've gone on about her enough.
Yeah,
Um,
Mike, just to jump in for a second, that scene with the argument with the mom, where she says, "If you didn't always tell me to be so nice, I wouldn't have helped him with his dog." Oh man, that was hard to watch. Like,
yeah,
like, God, it's terrible. And you turned it on your mom in the middle of this argument, and you can't blame anybody in the situation, but it was just that was hard to watch.
yeah. I'm kind of with Melo on that, where it was like, there was a part of that after, when they had the escape scene. And I was like, oh wow, this was like, what an intense movie. And wow, that didn't, like, it didn't feel like that took forever, but, like, what a great movie. And then I kind of, like, hit the button to see how much was left, and it was over an hour. I was like, oh, okay. So we got way more to go here. I was Part of me was expecting old Nick to come back later on, and, like, then they'd end up in the same situation. And I was dreading it because I was right there in it. I mean, I got involved with just, like, rooting, when that kid is in the rug in the back of the truck, you're rooting for him so hard, not that you shouldn't be, but it's just like they really draw you into that scene. They do so great with that. Also, props to the cop, not the one driving, but the cop that's in the back seat and asking him the questions. Like, props to her for being able to like ask the right questions and get to the right thing. It's like that's seems, maybe it's not, but it felt accurate for how that would work too. It's like there are probably people that have been rescued from situations because of conversations like that in those situations. And I just, I I really like that about this movie. Everything else everybody's pretty much said. Um Brie Larson did great, the kid did great. Um the yeah, that part after, like I was saying earlier, I was kind of with Mela, where the part after the abduction, it felt like it went on a little long. It was good. Like, I thought they, Aaron said it, they addressed a lot of it very, very well. But there was a certain, just like a little span of it where I was kind of like, I'm kind of over this. I didn't, I don't know, I wasn't as enthralled by it. And then once they got to the interview and the suicide attempt and all that, it was kind of like, all right, now we're, picking up towards the end here. But um and I love the fact that the kid saved his mom twice.
Yeah.
I,
With his
uh
magic hair.
How about his new
yes.
friend being Aaron? That's kind of cool.
Yeah, there you go. Yeah.
Everybody needs a friend named Aaron.
But yeah, great pick. Glad we watched it. I didn't know anything about it going in, so I just kind of, I assumed it was going to be kind of like a kidnapping thing, but I thought that was going to be the whole movie. And yeah, that was good pick, Tim.
Yeah. So Tim just threw out a second ago the hair, the
Yeah.
snaps. Like, I loved how that bounced through the show. Samson, his strength after mom's attempt to cut his hair off. And it was also, for me, the cringiest point of the whole movie when they just get out and get safe and get to grandma's house. And she's like, how about we
cut that
have
hair.
a haircut?
Yeah.
It's like, really? That's the fucking thing you're worried
Yeah.
about, is this kid's long hair? So to me, that was like the most I don't want to say the most inappropriate. I'll take that back. But
Outside
like,
of the
that
rape
was like,
and
it
the
was like,
abduction.
grandma, get your shit together.
Yeah.
It's like, let the kid have his ponytail. He's fine.
Yep. Totally agree. And I'm looking forward to. Yeah.
Can I ask a question of the group real quick before I actually see it here? What did everybody think of Grandma's boyfriend or partner or whatever? Was it Leo, or what was his name?
Was Leo?
Yeah. What did everybody think of him?
So I had an initial reaction of not good. And I don't know, like, I want to go back and watch and see if that was like how they shot it, or there was, there was something there, there was mannerism or whatever. And then
The kid
obviously
reacted that way.
They introduce him in silhouette, which makes him really scary.
Yeah.
But then right away, grandma says, which is kind of weird too. Like I say, they do a lot of shit really fast. He's mom's old friend. Like, he's always been a friend of the family, which kind of makes it weird and creepy. He's probably one of dad's friends.
I didn't take it that he was actually an old friend. I think.
Oh, I did.
I took it as a nice way of explaining
why grandma and grandpa weren't together.
Yes.
I 100% Brie Larson, Ma, knew him as a 7-year-old. He's been around the family forever.
Okay.
And when they got divorced, he was around. He was a good guy. Like, right after that silhouette shot that I saw, same thing. I thought the kid was going to freak out. It's old Nick, and either run away or run towards him and try to fucking stab him or something. Once that got passed, I was like, it's a good dude. Especially when William H. Macy had his,
He brought the dog and all of it. Yeah.
Love the scene where Jack's up and he's like, well, I don't know what I'm going to do. I guess I'm going to just go sit down and have some breakfast. I mean, he played it he played it so well with a kid that was that nervous that you had to like him after that. I mean, at the end of the movie,
Yeah.
he's kind of one of your favorite characters,
Yep.
which this thing hits on so many good points. They made a hell of a movie here, for sure.
Yeah.
Okay.
I as far as the details, I do love that. I will just reemphasize that too, as far as like, they don't have to show the kidnapping, they don't have to show the rape and all that stuff. They just when the time was right, and it's like, all right, this is why we're in here. Mommy was 17, and old Nick tricked her into coming into the store. It was like, there you go, you know what happened, and like that's all
Yeah.
you need. I'm with everybody on that being effective. But yeah, I'm done there. But yeah, good. Glad we watched this, and I got some nice points of view from you guys too, just like hearing about it. So yeah, again, props to the group.
Question for everybody. This didn't come up at all. How did we feel about Jack being a narrator through the movie? I mean, he was given us life through his eyes, and they didn't really explain who he was talking to. It's not like we were reading out of the journal of Jack. He was just kind of talking over some transitional scenes. Did that work for
I
everybody?
liked it.
I think
What-
that was paramount to the thing, like the stuff they held back that we appreciate, that we understood but didn't
Yeah.
need to be beaten over the head with. I think that is part and parcel with him being the narrator. And
Okay.
Yeah, putting him in the wardrobe for the rape scenes, putting him in
Yep.
the closet, doing the Legos when mom had tried to commit suicide. Yeah.
Mhm.
Like great perspective.
One thing we didn't talk about that I think should be at least mentioned, another powerful scene, is when she's just going through her room with Jack and showing what she used to be like, and she sees the pictures of her teammates and just kind of reflects on nothing happened to them. This all happened to me, and starts crying. Was a really powerful scene for me. Like, just the randomness of something that bad happen to somebody and them having to cope with the fact that you're the one that got picked in the wheel of terrible. I thought was a great scene. Um,
Yeah, they never
I,
show anybody else coming back. Just the few family members. No, they didn't show any of her friends contacting her or any aunts or uncles or anything like that.
right. Yeah, and we assume sooner or later that kind of thing's going to happen, right? Like, again, leaving details out for us to just get the point. It's I can't think of another movie that does that good of a job with that. I'm going to assume you're an intelligent person. I'm not going to hit you over the head with details. Two more trivia things, and I will call it quits for the night. One, Brie Larson was suggested for this role as a result of her in Short Term 12, which is a movie I've been thinking about picking. I watched it at one point, like I'm going to pick it, and then I pick something else. Has anybody seen Short Term 12?
I have not.
It makes perfect sense why somebody who knows that movie would go to this director and go, "Hey, you should look at Brie Larson for this role." She is a counselor in it's almost like a foster care kind of place, and there's some pretty extreme personalities in there, and she is one of them as a counselor, and it's a pretty cool movie. Um, and then this one's for Aaron. Uh, Jacob Trembley's mother, to try and get him more comfortable with the role he was playing, was trying to figure out how to get him to get to meet Brie Larson and start to make a connection so that they could act in these scenes. And she said, "I got an idea. Why don't you go ask her 3 questions so you'll start to get to know each other, and come up with 3 questions to go ask Miss Larson, and you guys will be able to act together." The 3 questions he asked were, "What's your favorite color? What's your favorite animal? Do you like Star Wars Episode 4?"
Episode 4 specifically.
I like this kid. You got to like this kid. So, all right. Thank you, guys. That was difficult subject matter. I knew I was taking us to a place where it would be cringy, and we've done that before, but it was just too tempting not to go for it because of hearing about the performance. And I had read a little bit about how they handled it, and I thought it would be a really interesting conversation. So, thank you, guys. Melo, you're up. It's your pick. Take it away.
All right, thank you. So yeah, it was funny. Was that Dan or Mike that clarified? I can't remember on
It was Mike. Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. Because I texted Tim during the week because I was trying to figure out that
Yeah, sorry about that.
the way I heard it was like he was able to put in all of his movies and get a larger recommendation of all these other movies. And I was like, I'm not seeing that on IMDb, man. I don't know how to do that. And so I just went back to the beginning. Big Night was the first movie that I went with. Nothing jumped out at me. I did. So then I went to Disaster Artist and something did jump out at me. And then I was thinking, oh crap, maybe I should do like something Christmassy. But I think I'll save that for whoever's next, since that actually falls with that person. Plus, I like my pick, and not for any other reason besides. So yeah, Disaster Artist was my second movie, and Uncut Gems was one of those that was recommended. I haven't seen it. I genuinely do not know much about this movie at all. Other than I believe it was pretty widely well received.
Is that the Sandler one?
Yep.
Yeah.
Is this another A24?
No, he
Okay.
started his own thing with Netflix, I think. Is it Netflix?
Well, I think it's a Happy Madison, but
Okay.
through Netflix.
Is it Happy Madison?
Netflix did like a 24 movie deal with him.
The movie will be Uncut Gems. I like it. Good pick.
That'll do it for this episode of the BTB Movie Club podcast. Thank you as always for listening. We know we enjoyed ourselves. We hope you did too. Have yourself a great week. We are partnered with the SPDM Crew Podcasting Network.